Hello and welcome back to the Orlando Adventures podcast. I'm your host Russ, and today's episode is the keep, update or close one. So this is one of my favourite segments of the podcast. It really is. And for those of you who don't know, when I do the guest episodes, we have a section called keep, update or close. And I love it. I love it because every single time I basically get to pick 3 options and give it to the guests and basically go a bit wild and go a bit rogue and give them some options for what they would, in theory, keep, update or close if given like kind of the keys to the kingdom to be able to do so. And over the past few weeks, I'm going to be real with you, I've probably been a little bit mean. I've lent towards giving some slightly more difficult options out, and I could have been nice. And I when I email guests and I say to them, these are the options I'm going to give you, X, Y, and Z. I'm really sorry, I might have been a bit mean. And the main one that comes to mind is the Magic with the Misgivings one. And I'm so sorry to Becky and Kiara because I sent them. I can't remember exactly the options I gave them, but it was a Hollywood Studios theme. And immediately Becky messaged me and was like, this is not okay. Like we're gonna fall out. But like, you know, in totally like the best way possible. Like, and we had such fun with it. And fair play to everyone because no one has ever turned around to me and gone, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not prepared to do it. Everyone does it. And like fair play because sometimes putting your opinion out there, like it certainly divides people. And we all know it's fun, and that's the main thing about this podcast. And I hope that everybody's kind of got that from day one. This is a laugh. Like I am not the most serious person ever. Let's get this absolutely real. And you know, for anyone who's listened to the previous 60 odd episodes of the podcast will know that I like a laugh. I am fully up for just having a good laugh, and you'll see this when eventually the vlogs come. I'm up for just a bit of banter. Like, I don't take myself too seriously. So with that, I figured let's do an episode on keep, update or close, and I'm going to put it back on me because it feels only fair, doesn't it? I feel like if I kind of do these answers myself, I'll give myself some options, and I probably will do another episode on this at some point, but I will get people to send me in their requests. But I'm going to basically just try and do what I deem to be probably the most popular rides in the parks. And that alone might be a little bit divisive. Not everyone's going to think that the choices I've picked are the most popular rides in the park. It ultimately doesn't matter. They are 3 choices that I've given myself for a keep, update or close. And we might as well start at Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is always generally the place that I start if I do any of these kind of episodes where we go around all of the kind of parks. And I haven't thought about these. I basically wrote down 3 options for each park, and I haven't put thought to it. So anything I come up with, a bit like in the old Q&A, I'm going to do it straight off the dome. We're going off the top of my head. We're going to wing it to an extent. So the options that I've given myself for Magic Kingdom are Tron, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, if I gave this to anyone, I'd feel mean. I really would, because obviously these are 3 like behemoth rides of this park, and I've got to think. I'll always start with the keep. So in terms of the keep, in terms of what I would keep out of these 3, I wouldn't change it. I'm going Pirates of the Caribbean. I absolutely love it. I adore Pirates of the Caribbean. It holds nostalgia for me. I love the film series, the smell. It's for me, it's up there with some of the best rides in Orlando. I think it's perfect. I really do. And I know that in terms of what the ride is, it's not a thrill ride, it's nothing like that, but it just ticks a lot of boxes for me. It ticks a lot of boxes, and like I said, with nostalgia and the feel and the aesthetic of it and the IP as well. So I also love the fact that this ride basically inspired the films as well, which I think is fantastic. It really, really is. The update. I am going to update Haunted Mansion. And I'm already starting with controversial. We're just going straight off the bat controversy here. So I'm going to update Haunted Mansion. When I was a kid, I hated Haunted Mansion. I can't lie. There was a time that I absolutely convinced my dad to take me on this ride, and I said to him that I really want to go on it, and I didn't even make it out of the stretch room. Yeah. So I hated this ride a lot. But since then, I've grown to love it. I really have. And again, it's a nostalgia. I think it's unique. I think it's really unique. I like the Haunted Mansion film. I like the new one as well. I love the look of it, the whole kind of show building, the feel of it inside. It's again a bit like Pirates, and it was a fairly close call between the two of them. But I personally I prefer Pirates, but Haunted Mansion is right up there. So I think it gets an update. And in terms of an update, I think that if we were going to go for a route, I think some of the animatronics, some of the effects could be just brought up to maybe a modern day. And I appreciate that it's a nostalgic ride. I appreciate it's a retro ride, but I'm all for bringing stuff forward as well. I'm not all about just keeping stuff kind of old for the sake of it being old. Like sometimes we can be critical in a positive way and say that maybe this could be better in this day and age for this or that reason. So that's what I would do. I and a few people have said that before when I've given this as an option for keep update or close, but I would update Haunted Mansion. And this is where we kick the episode off straight away with a nice bit of controversy, and I'm shutting Tron. So I know there's a lot of fans of Tron out there, and again, I'm not bashing the ride. It's not a bash, but I'm basically, of the three options I've given myself, I would close Tron. I personally don't think that Tron is the best roller coaster out there. I think it's a fantastic addition. I think it's a fantastic addition to this park. Please do not get that misconstrued. I think it's a wonderful ride. I do. I really, really do. But if I'm going to put it against the other two, for me, Magic Kingdom is a bit of nostalgia. It isn't Tron. And to be fair, it's difficult because I am a little bit biased on this. I've never watched Tron the films, personally. I do apologise for that. If this was Guardians of the Galaxy, it would probably be my favourite ride. And that is just me being real. And that is a bias. And we're all going to have a bias because, we like the stuff we like. And if there's stuff that we don't feel as much allegiance to, then we're probably not going to feel as strongly about it. So in this scenario, and I'm so sorry, but I am going to close Tron. God, this is going to be nearly as controversial as me saying that Spider-Man's the most overrated ride. God. Oh dear. Next up, and this is going to be fairly controversial, this entire episode, because I'm gonna upset some people by saying I'm gonna close their favourite ride. So I'll just say sorry now before I say it another 4,000 times. Next park, Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom, the options I've given, and I've put one of these in here because I still think that it's one of the most popular rides. I'm going Dinosaur, Flight of Passage, Expedition Everest. So, obviously, I've included Dinosaur, and we know that it's getting closed. So, it is going to be replaced by Indiana Jones. And I have said this before, I'm kind of up for it. And I'm up for it because a little bit like what I was saying with Tron, I like Indiana Jones. I've always enjoyed Indiana Jones films. I will always watch Indiana Jones films. I love the kind of like style, the era, the feel. I think that Indiana Jones will lend itself really well to this park and this area of the park. So, what options am I going to go for? I'm going to keep Expedition Everest. A little bit like Pirates. And it turns out I'm quite a nostalgic guy. And I'm bound to be a bit nostalgic. And I think we all are because because we've created memories over the years, haven't we? When we go to these parks, you think of like times that you've gone on these rides, and it kind of brings you back to a place. And Everest does that for me. I always remember going on this with my dad for the first time, and I think only myself and my dad went on it, and we didn't know what was basically coming up at the time. Somehow we didn't know, we'd avoided it, and I remember going on it with him, and that moment when it went backwards, just being, a bit scared inevitably, but like absolutely loving it, and I thought it was fantastic. I really did, and it will hold a special place for me. It always will. I got fond memories of this ride from that specific moment, and that was 2008. So that was a long time ago, 16 years ago, and I still to this day remember it. So absolutely love it. Everest stays for me. I'm going to update Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage for me, like, I know a lot of people love it. Okay, so again, it's not a bash, but Avatar as a franchise, I like it. It doesn't draw me in huge amounts. So it's not a sell in terms of I'm all over it because it's Avatar. I'm a bit salty about it. I've said before that they re-released the first Avatar and basically took Endgame off the top spot of highest grossing film ever. So I am a bit salty about that. But I do enjoy the films. I enjoy them a lot. I do. But they are not my favourite films of all time, as we know. Flight of Passage, I think, is a great ride. I think it's a fabulous ride. I do. But do I think that it could be updated? Yeah, I do. I think that there could be a little bit like Star Tours. I think there could be like different videos, and obviously there's been a second Avatar film out now at this point, and there's a third one coming out next year as well. I think it would be really clever to do like different scenes from the films, different kind of like see different things. I think that would be cool. I think that it would feel a lot more unique. I think it would feel like a more unique experience every time you went on the ride. I know a lot of rides are the same experience every single time, and that's how rides have been for years. But I'm just trying to think outside of the box and think of like a way I could update this ride, because it is fabulous. Like, the technology is wonderful. It really, really is. It looks fabulous. So I'm going to update Flight of Passage, and I do apologise, but I'm going to close Dinosaur. I think it's had its time. I really do. And it's not a bash. It's not a hate on the ride, but I feel like it's had its time. And maybe it's because they've announced that it's going to be replaced by Indiana Jones. I'm kind of all right with it. I know a lot of people aren't, but I'm cool. I actually think that this ride has run its course. I think it's had a good innings, but it is time. It is time to say goodbye. And Dinosaur, for me, it quite honestly, it isn't that difficult a decision. I would close Dinosaur, and I'm very excited for Indiana Jones. So that's Animal Kingdom. Next park we are going to head to Hollywood Studios. The 3 rides that I have given, and again, I've gone with what I perceive to be probably the 3 most popular rides, and that is Rise of the Resistance, Tower of Terror, and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And the reason I've included Mickey and Minnie's in here is over potentially Rockin' Roller Coaster is because I think nowadays, for more people, Mickey and Minnie's is probably more of a draw. That could just be a biased opinion, because we know that I'm not the biggest fan of Rockin' Roller Coaster, but that's why I've put Mickey and Minnie's in. So keep Rise of Resistance, easy, done, sorted. Not even a question, is it? Update. I am going to update, and this is after I've just defended putting Mickey and Minnie's in the option. I'm going to update Tower of Terror. So Tower of Terror for me is a wonderful ride. However, I think personally the Twilight Zone kind of storyline thing may be a little dated at this point. I wouldn't change this. I'm not saying change it from the Twilight Zone. I'm not saying change it from that at all. I'm saying it just needs a tweak. It needs an update. It needs a modernisation of it. I for a fact would not update this to Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of my favourite franchises, some of my favourite films, but I wouldn't do it. And I don't think that's the way to go. I think the way to go is that it's this dark, it's this kind of like more a bit more of a horror, spooky kind of feel to it, and I think it works perfectly. I don't think that needs to change by any stretch of the imagination, but I think like just the story of it, some of the videos and things like that could just be a bit more refreshed, in my opinion. You know, what does everyone think on that? Maybe I'm wrong, but again, I do love a bit of nostalgia. I do, and I would fundamentally I would keep probably 80% of this the same. I think I'd keep it also it looks the same, but I'm just thinking about like videos and like the interaction in the ride. I would potentially update that a little bit. That's the way I would go. Again, that's not for everyone, but there you go. And in terms of my clothes in this scenario, and I think it's a brilliant ride. I really do. I think it's wonderful. But I've got to close Mickey and Minnie's, and I know it's a fairly new ride, but I've got to close it, and I've got to close it because for me, like in this scenario, the other two trumpet hands down. It is a wonderful ride, and it's wonderful to have a presence of Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse in a ride itself. It really, really is. It's wonderful. And it epitomizes Disney, and it sums up Disney, and it's just got so many good feels to it. But the other two, for me, they are Hollywood Studios. They epitomize Hollywood Studios for me, and I just couldn't in any world pick Mickey and Minnie's over either of them. I love it, but that's the way I've got to go. It really is. I think it's a great ride, but it just doesn't trump the other two in this scenario. Next up, we are going to head to Epcot. So, Epcot doesn't have a huge amount of rides, and I've also got to think of like what are probably the most popular. It was difficult. I've got Guardians, I've gone Soarin', and then it was a toss-up between Frozen and Ratatouille. I've gone Frozen. I think Frozen for me is probably a more popular franchise. I think it's a more popular ride. I don't 100% know. Like I haven't gone and looked at like crowd calendars or anything like that. That's what I've given myself. We know that I'm a big Frozen fan, so why not make it difficult for myself and put Frozen in there? The Keep is the easiest. This is one of the easiest of the entire episode so far. Guardians of the Galaxy. What a ride. What an absolute ride. What an absolute pleasure it is as well. And there's a few songs that I haven't experienced on this. And to be fair, I might experience a couple of these songs next time I go. And you know what? It might change my opinion on this ride slightly. But I hold such great memories of this ride, and especially from being lucky for having September. I'm definitely a big fan of this ride. I love the pre-show. I love the look of it. I think the ride system's fabulous. I'm lucky that I'm one of the people who doesn't get motion sickness, so it doesn't get me. But I love it. And Guardians, quite honestly, I think it's a perfect ride. I really, really do. If I were to be slightly, I was about to say critical. I don't think it's critical. If I were to give constructive criticism, then I would offer some different songs. I think of some of the films that some of the songs that are in the films, and I think they would suit this ride better. And I've got examples as well. I think of Mr. Blue Sky. I can't think of the artist. Electric something orchestra or something like that, isn't it? I'm literally going to look it up now because otherwise you're going to think I'm stupid. Mr. Blue Sky, Electric Light Orchestra. And the other song I would go for is Come and Get Your Love by Redbone, I believe. I think those songs, in my opinion, would be better than some of the offerings that they've got. And I say that having not heard all of them on the ride. But I think of songs that would suit this, and I think those for me would be brilliant. I don't know where you will stand on it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if the thoughts, the options that I've said would be a good shout for this ride. The update in this park that I'm going to go for is Frozen. I would update Frozen. I think Frozen's a great ride. I really do. But what I would like to see, I'd like to see a bit more Frozen 2. I love Frozen. I love the first film. But I've said this quite a few times, but I really rate Frozen 2. I think Frozen 2 is actually a really good film. I think that as an overall film, I think it's up there with some of the best animated films that there's ever been. I really, really do. So I would update Frozen. Sadly, then I would close Soarin'. And again, I've got some nostalgia for Soarin'. I remember going that. I kind of go back to that 2008 trip. I remember going on Soarin' and thinking it was wonderful, thinking it's it's a wonderful ride. But if I think now, if I were to go to Epcot and I was to go in there right now, and I think of like things for me that would be a must do, Soarin' wouldn't be up there. And I know that might sound absolutely mad, and a few of you have probably switched off at this point and thinking like, this guy just talks some rubbish. But that's opinions. I like the ride. Okay, let's not get that wrong. Again, let's not get that wrong. I think it's a great ride. I think the premise of it is fantastic. Never mad on like seeing people's dangling feet. That's never ideal. Yeah, it doesn't always grab me. It doesn't always do a lot for me. So in this example, in these three options, I'm going to close Soarin'. So apologies for all the big Soarin' fans out there. But that is the 4 Disney parks. That's the 4 Disney. So there were some hard choices in there. In terms of the keeps, I've gone for Pirates, Everest, Rise of the Resistance, and Guardians. The updates are Haunted Mansion, Flight of Passage, Tower of Terror, and Frozen. And the closes are Tron, Dinosaur, Mickey and Minnie's, and Soarin'. So let's go to Universal Studios. Universal Studios then. I've tried to give myself what, again, I perceive to be probably the 3 most popular. And they might not be most popular by queue length. That might be fair to say. But I've got Mummy, Gringotts, and E.T. I think that it would be fair to say if I kind of like said this park, what would be the main rides of this park? I think that's what a lot of people would go for. E.T. I appreciate is the kind of is the one we're not sure, but that's what I've gone for. That's the option. So what am I gonna do? And this is tough. This is really tough because there's a couple of these rides I absolutely love. I absolutely adore them. And do you know what? I am going to keep The Mummy. I think The Mummy's wonderful. I really do. I think it's a fantastic ride. I love this era of The Mummy. The original Mummy film, Mummy and The Mummy Returns, I think are brilliant films. I think Brendan Fraser at his absolute best is brilliant. I love his interaction in the ride. I think Imhotep is a fantastic villain. I think the story of the ride's quite fun. I think the aesthetics of it are brilliant. I love that it's a dark ride. It's a coaster. It ticks a lot of boxes for me. It really, really does. So for me, a bit of nostalgia. The Mummy stays. The Mummy is my keep. My update, and this might come as a little bit of a shock to some people, but I'm updating Gringotts. I'm going to update Gringotts because I love it. And this is one of my favourite rides anywhere. I think it's a wonderful ride. I think the ride system's fantastic. But the only thing for me that lets this down ever so slightly is the story. And you hear me out on this one. I think the story's good. However, I'm quite a big Harry Potter fan. And I'm not mad on the fact that they basically inserted this storyline into this ride, because this storyline makes absolutely no sense to the films. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I'm sorry, at what point was Voldemort in Bellatrix's vault? Like, it never happened. That didn't happen in the films. So why have we suddenly decided for a ride that we're going to do that? I appreciate you wanted to get all the characters in there. I totally get it. But making up a new story, wasn't that keen on it. What would I do? I mean, I love it. I really, really do. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because without like completely changing the ride, it is tough. But I don't feel like this ride needs Voldemort. And that's just me. What was wrong with the Death Eaters and Bellatrix just being the villains of this ride? I don't necessarily understand. I don't necessarily understand why we needed to have Voldemort in this. I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, he's a fantastic character. But I just don't necessarily understand it. So that would be my little critique of this ride. But I think that the ride system's fantastic. I like the hybrid system of it. And it is great fun. I love the queue. I think What an addition! What an absolute addition to this park. I think it's top tier. I really do. And it leads me on, and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry because there's a lot of people who are probably like, Russ, you are an idiot. But out of these three options, I would have to close ET. And again, it's not a bash. It's not a bash. It's not a hate. It's not a hate on ET. I've said before, I haven't hidden from the fact that I think that ET is weird. I haven't hidden from the fact that I think that the ride maybe hasn't stood the test of time that well. But I get that there's nostalgia. I get people like it. And to be fair, this is a bit of a tangent, but myself and Annie, we went to like an orchestra, a live orchestra where they played musical scores from the films. And this was in like a big old church where we live. It was amazing. Trust me, like this was fantastic. And it opened with a Universal Studios theme tune, which like I just goosebumps, absolute goosebumps. And the first song was E.T. And I didn't think that E.T. held a lot of kind of like nostalgia for me. I tell you, like, it had my eyes watering a little bit. I felt a bit overwhelmed. Apparently, like, E.T. does mean quite a lot to me because genuinely it does. Like some of my earliest memories of these parks are E.T. And if I were to talk to my parents, like right now, about their kind of experiences when I was younger, my brother was younger, and us going to these parks, they would bring up ET because I loved it. I absolutely adored it, and I would try and take them on it over and over and over again. So don't get me wrong, like I hold a lot of nostalgia for this ride in terms of like what it is and how long it's been around. However, that was 25 years ago, and it was a fairly old franchise then. And I'm just at a point where I'm realistic to the modern day, and out of these options, I would have to close it. That doesn't mean I want this ride to shut. All right, so like if you gave me different options, if we picked something, I don't know. I'm not even going to say because then it just means that I'm just going to upset someone else on another opinion. But in this example, I would have to close ET. We're going to head over to Islands of Adventure. And a lot of you know that this has been my favourite park. And to be fair, it might not be my favourite park on the next trip. I'm not sure. We will see. But there's two rides in this park that make this park extra special for me personally. I love a roller coaster, as we all know. I think two of these rides are two of the best rides in the world. And that is Hagrid's and Velocicoaster. And the third option, and it's difficult because I've got to think of, as in like options that I actually think are the most popular. And I could put Doctor Doom in there. I could put, but I don't necessarily think it is the most popular at all. I could put Hulk, but I don't think Hulk is necessarily the most popular either. I think I've got to go Spider-Man. I would say that Spider-Man is probably the third most popular ride in this park. Either that or Jurassic River Adventure. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But I would go Spider-Man. However, I think we all know where this is going. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This has happened for like the second time in a month. I'm going to start with the close because it's fairly obvious. I've got to close Spider-Man, and I'm genuinely sorry. And if it were against any other rides, I don't even think it would be a question. It wouldn't be going because I love it. And I will reiterate, Spider-Man is my favourite Marvel character. Like, categorically. Absolutely is. But, unfortunately, against the other two rides, it's not even a question. This for me is the easiest one. Velocicoaster has to go in the keep. I personally think it is a wonderful attraction. I won't go as far to say it's perfect because I do think there's tweaks that could be made. I think that things like the raptors around the track, and I think I've said this before, if they had been animatronics, I think they'd have been so much better. And I question a little bit why they didn't do that. I don't know why they didn't, but they're more kind of statues, aren't they? But I would have gone with animatronics, and I think that's a way that they could have made this ride even better. But the ride itself, wonderful. I think it's a brilliant roller coaster. And it leads me to the one I've said quite a few times over the past few months, but I'd update Hagrid's. And as I've talked about many times, it's the animatronics for me. And I'm not saying the animatronics are bad, because they're certainly not. But I just look at what Universal have done around the world with some of their animatronics, and even in this park, and I go back to Kong, they've proven that they basically can do unbelievable animatronics. So I don't know what happened on this ride. Like, the animatronics, for me, they're like a 6, 7 out of 10. And I feel like Universal can do really good animatronics. Look at some of the stuff in Universal Studios Beijing. Like, just take a little look at that Jurassic World. I can't remember what it's called. The Jurassic World ride. Have a look at that, and you'll see what I mean. Like, this is not a bash. This is genuinely, how can Universal do something so well, and I mean so well, somewhere else, and then go with this? For me, it feels strange. But again, the ride itself, unbelievable. What a ride. What an absolutely stunning coaster. I think it's a stunning ride for everyone. And I love the aspect of being able to sit on the bike or be able to sit in the sidecar. I think there's so many wonderful kind of surprises in the ride. I think that just the aesthetic of it as well. And I love that it's Harry Potter, and it is special. It really is. But I would update this. So my option is going to be keep Velocicoaster, update Hagrid's, and I sadly will have to close Spider-Man. And that's it. That is the keep, update, or close one. And this one's been tough, but I hope I haven't upset anyone. And I've put myself out here. I put myself out here and like tried to give myself hard choices, because I've done exactly the same thing to all of you guys. So it's only fair for me to try and do the same back to myself a little bit. I love all of these rides. I do. There isn't one ride on this list I look at it and go, I don't like it. There isn't one. There isn't. And to be honest with you, there aren't many on Orlando at all that I would look at and go, I don't like that ride. Because I really don't think there are any. Like, and there's a couple of like mentions, I'm sure that quite a lot of people say it. I know there's a few that divide opinion, and I think of things like E.T., or I think of like It's a Small World. I don't hate these rides. Like, of course I don't. Like, they're nostalgic, and they do mean a lot. But does that mean that they're my favourite ride? No, of course it doesn't. But at the same time, like, I appreciate why other people do. So I hope you've all enjoyed this one. I really do. And I hope you're all enjoying the podcast. I absolutely love doing this. I really do. So I always want to take a little minute at the end of every episode to just thank everyone, because I couldn't do this without everyone. And the feedback I always get, it honestly blows my mind. And I'll keep saying it, because it really does. And it motivates me so much. It motivates me to keep doing this and to try and bring you more, and to bring you more content, and to do different stuff as well. I always try to bring different stuff, and obviously we've just had the DLP with Elliot Mitchell episode. Obviously that episode is the second DLP one we've done, but because we've done DLP before, I wanted to bring another and beyond episode as well. So we've got a really exciting one coming in a couple of weeks' time as well, where we explore Universal Studios Beijing. And I mentioned that at the end of this episode, but it'll be a really exciting episode. So if anyone gets the opportunity to listen to that one, I've got a fabulous guest returning for that one as well. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of plans. There's a lot of things in the pipeline. And I'm excited for all of it. And I'm excited to take you all along for the journey. I know in my Q&A episode, I talked about categorically saying that my next trip would be October next year. And to be honest with you, this is me just on a slight tangent. A lot of you will know that the Virgin Flying Club got updated this week, and ultimately in my opinion, they've absolutely nerfed it. I think they've trashed it. I really do. And it's not to say that there aren't some flights that are available for lower points, but from what I can make out, some of the flight offerings, they've almost quadrupled or maybe more the amount of points that you'll need to make it actually unfeasible for you to actually be able to get a reward flight on some selected dates. And that seems to be the case, or is going to be the case for next October, which is so frustrating. It's frustrating because I basically waited. I've waited and waited to be able to book these flights. And it's basically put me in a position where I'm like, I might have potentially got priced out of October, which is disappointing. However, that doesn't mean we're not going. That just means that I might not be going in October at this point. And just, you know what I'm like. I've got many plans going on. So I'm currently looking at different dates, and obviously, if I did do anything, you would all be the first to know. So just watch this space, but October might not be on at this point, and it's frustrating because we've been looking forward to doing October next year. We were kind of like hyping ourselves for Halloween Horror Nights, and I really want to do it, but you've also got to be realistic, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure in this community, I think, and not from a bad place, but I think there's pressure for us to be booking these trips like ASAP and getting, doing multiple trips. If I can do multiple trips, I'll be all over it. But at the same time, I've got to look at it and go, what is feasible? What is the most sensible option as well? So I'll always share everything. I'll always be as upfront and honest as possible. But I am going next year. So just rest assured, we're going next year. It's happening. That is 100%. But it might not be October initially. Let's just leave it there. We'll see what happens. But stay tuned in because there's a lot more coming up in the next few weeks and a lot of exciting stuff at that. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me kind of going off on this weird tangent at the end as well. If you want me to try and do an episode on things like flying club schemes and that kind of stuff, let me know. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. I'll have to do a bit of research. Obviously, I know the Virgin one, but it doesn't mean I know kind of the other ones out there with regards to Avios and all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily know it, but I can certainly look into it if it's something that people are interested in. So thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you all in the next one.